So it's time to dig into my junk pile and see what items that have been sitting there that need to get made over. This suitcase, though suitcases are awesome for extra storage and display, it's a little bit worse for wear. And then I always have a stack of windows. Oh my goodness, do I always have a stack of windows. So we all need an idea for those. And just a cute little bench. Just a bench that could use a paint job to make it a little bit more appealing. So do y'all have any junk laying around that you bought with the purpose of making over? But, you know, we kind of collect, we buy faster than we can make over sometimes. So in today's video, it's another junkin' video. I just absolutely love to shop. I love to buy. And it's time to get some of these items made over. So if you are new to the channel, my name is Yvonne, and I like to buy secondhand items, not necessarily just to decorate my home with or to resell, but I also love to share my inspiration with you all of my ideas of what I do to these items to get them to be beautiful home decor. We're gonna go ahead and start off with the bench. It's probably a homemade piece. It had a purpose for why the person made it. It does have some cracks and it has some knots, and I'm not trying to take away all the imperfections of it, just, you know, some of the large ones. So I'm just using some spackling, nothing too fancy, to fill in a lot of these imperfections. Since it was a natural piece, the screw holes, the nail holes, they weren't filled in, and that's not a fun detail I wanted to go ahead and see. So we're going to go ahead and fill those in also. Some of the spackling spots are drying. I'm going to go ahead and take some 220 sandpaper and sand those nice and smooth, just where the spackling is, and then where it's been cut and it's really rough, I'm going to go ahead and try to smooth that down a little bit because that just seems to catch dust and debris. I did notice that some of my spackle was kind of turning the brownish red color, meaning that the wood is probably going to bleed just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple coats of shellac to seal in where I spackled and seal in any of that from happening and bleeding through my paint. I get my fusion paint from Vonda from the Painted Heirloom. She just happened to be carrying 2 new lines in her store, and she sent me a couple to sample. And I absolutely love the color of this. Now this is not a chalk paint, it's a chalk paint. So it actually has a top coat in it, I believe. I'm new to it, but I absolutely love the color. So I thought this would be so cute on this little bench. My first impression of it is it goes on nice and smooth. The coverage looks to be pretty amazing, especially where I had those knots and then covered up with spackle. So I'm liking on the coverage so far. So it's funny because I know, I'm like, why is the labeling on upside down? I'm sure that they have a purpose for that. I did find the name of it, just Duckie. So cute name, but I know really not a lot about this paint. So why the labeling is the way that it is. I know you're supposed to shake it in the container, but pretty funny that they have the labeling upside down. I'm a person that just jumps right in. Sure, send me a paint color. I'll give it a try as long as it's something that's pleasing to my eye, and I'll just test it out. And it's the perfect opportunity to test it out on my junk pile stuff. So now that I have 2 coats seem to be covering just fine one, you know, your first coat kind of goes on and then it attracts the second coat. It's still nice and smooth. Unlike a chalk paint that sometimes as you're painting it on, you know, as the chalk paint dries, it kind of tries to take the paint off. This is not doing that by any means. Well, it wasn't called a chalk paint, but I think it's similar that it definitely has that matte, no shine finish that a lot of us are looking for sometimes. So that is a plus of this one. So yes, I always like to flip my items over first, get the underneath painted so I don't miss a spot that should be painted, like the underneath of the bench and the underneath of like that little 2x4 that's holding this a piece. Is this piece perfect? No, it's got a little crookedness when it comes to that support beam, but it was nailed in and it was not a feature I was going to try to take apart for what you can get for this. Wood of this piece had a lot of texture, and I know that this has a top coat in it, I believe, if I read right. So I'm going to go ahead and start distressing the piece. I want to see the texture. The wood, like I said, had a lot of texture to it. So let's see, starting off with the edges, getting it down to that wood, and see what it looks like. Just some 220 sandpaper on my orbital sander to distress it. Love seeing all the graining of the wood that popped through when I distressed it. Now, if this does have a top coat and I read right, I don't need to seal it in, but I don't know. I am a creature of habit, and so I'm just going to use a little bit of the Homestead clear wax just to finish this piece off. Now, what to do with a suitcase that has seen better days? We got scratches, we got water damage. Yeah, so it's kind of been like sitting around in my stash until sometimes you just need to get inspiration. So I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned off with some Dawn dish soap and some hot water, see if any of the staining comes off. I don't think a lot of it will, but let's see what it does. While that's drying in my studio, I'm going to go into my office and I'm going to use my Cricut to make some signage. So I think, why not make a sign on this? Some wording, just something fun. Now I'm looking for a pointing hand. So I went into my Cricut, I typed in hands. I'm like, okay, I want a pointing finger hand. I've seen them on antique signs before. I don't know if the Cricut, oh my gosh, it does have it. I was so excited when I ran across that because I'm like, it just has, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Those little God wink moments when you find what you're looking for, because yeah, there's other ways to create it, but anyway, so I have the size that I can create the sign, my words, so I always try to remember to measure before I go in to use my Cricut. So I'm going to go ahead and size my hand, my pointy finger, to what I think will fit onto the suitcase. So when you're sizing it, even though you have like your dimensions, you still have to look to see, does it make it wonky? Is it stretching it oddly? So you don't always get to have the size that you want to fit on the item just because it stretches it out and makes it look weird. Inspiration is coming from a board that I saw in an antique mall. So now I am just texting out the word antique. I have to figure out a font. Oh, there's so many fonts out there. So you just kind of have to play with trying to remember the vision in my head, because no, I did not take a picture. But it's always about finding all those elements to put together to create your vision. So I'm going into my search engine again to see if does the Cricut images have any antiques? Not really. They don't have a lot of antique wording. They have a lot of vintage. They have, they are considering old stuff. So no, that's a no-go. I'm just going to have to go ahead and find a font. I knew that I wanted a font where there was like that shadow lettering. Not positive that I'm going to be keeping this like in the lowercase, but now it's time to play. I've got my 2 elements, and this is a feature I have not used on the Cricut yet, which is the warp feature. I'm still learning my Cricut. I don't use it a ton, but I'm always learning. So I'm like, ooh, yes, that is kind of like what I was looking for, something to make like some curve to the word. Oh my gosh, love that. Now I'm just going to play around and we'll see what I create. Ended up changing my lettering all to uppercase and then actually flipping my hand so that it was pointing the other direction. So they didn't give you 2 hands, but you are able to do a flip in the other direction using your Cricut. Those of you who love to see Tater, he is interested in what the Cricut is doing. He's like, why is that moving back and forth? What's that sound? Oh, I love this curious kitten that does not sleep. This kitty cat does not sleep, and he is curious about everything. Tater would like to help with all my projects today. So how can you not hang around inside and let him help? Oh my gosh, he's so stinking cute. Can't do it all in here, but got some weeding to do with the help of a kitty cat. He's too cute. Too cute. Love to bring him out in the studio with me, but he is so curious and he is a climber. He climbs on everything. So I cut my antique and my stencil out as close to the image as I can get because it just helps me be able to center my object. I just doesn't have to be perfectly centered, but close enough anyway. So a ruler helps. And this ended up being like a fabric. I wasn't sure like if it, all the suitcases, some are made of paper, but this it ended up being a fabric. I was a little worried that my vinyl would like pull up the paper, but I'm glad that this is a fabric suitcase. I'm actually putting my wording on the bottom of the suitcase. That way, if somebody doesn't want to set it up and you see the wording, they can definitely still use it to stack on top of each other if they choose. And then because I cut my wording, my image so close and cut it out, I'm going to go ahead and now go back in with some masking tape to make sure when I go to paint it that I don't get it on areas I don't want paint. I'll be using a stencil brush to do a dry brush technique using Fusion's Coal Black paint. So when you're doing a dry brush, that means you just have minimal paint on that brush. I'm doing a swirling motion and I'm only doing 1 coat, and this should grab onto that very dry fabric. I am going to go ahead and see if I can bring a little bit of life to the suitcase's very dry fabric, and I'm going to use Wise Owl salve. Oh my goodness, look at how it just is like, oh, hello, we needed that drink a long time ago. So it's not really going to change probably a lot of the imperfections of it, but at least I don't smell. Sometimes these old suitcases could have a mildewy smell. This one does not, but I just want to give it a little bit. So, yeah, I definitely needed some kind of a drink. How many of you watching have that pile of windows? Because you never know. You're like, I may never see an old window again, so you pick it up for a couple bucks at some type of sale. Yeah, I'm just as bad as everybody else, and I seem to always have the big ones left, these full-size windows, and coming up with something, because decoupage paper a lot of times doesn't fill the whole. I wish they'd make decoupage paper that large. I try to order it as large as I can, but it still doesn't fill up the whole window. So it's always like sometimes these windows kind of get set on the back shelf, and they're always filthy dirty because they've been sitting in somebody's shed, somebody's barn. Yep. So let me share with you an idea. So hopefully I can inspire you to get into your stash of windows and work on some of these larger windows. Cleaning up the window, if the glazing is coming off, that hard crusty stuff, I just take it off because I'm going to be sealing in this back and I don't want it to come loose on my design. Now there's still the metal glazing points that are keeping the glass in, so I don't have to worry about that. And now I'm just going to go ahead and try to get some masking tape in those edges so I have a minimal cleanup when I'm done painting on the window. So unfortunately, a lot of the times these are the part that we're using is the part that you see on the outside of the house. So there's always usually like the raw piece of wood that leaves a lip from where it's been painted. This window has only been painted once, it looks like. So I'm just taking some 80 grit sandpaper, knocking down the super shiny of the paint along with trying to even out that raised edge of the paint. Actually sent me a couple different paints to try that she is now carrying. I don't know about you all, but I'm always excited to try new things. And when I saw this color, Vonda has my heart because that shows that she knows what colors I love. This reminds me of Curry from the Piglets Closet in the Sweet Pickins paint line. So why not test this out? So this is an all-in-one paint. It has paint, primer, and top coat all in one. So let's give it a go. Great thing to use for these large windows if you want to do a backing is drop cloth fabric. It's inexpensive. You can buy a whole bunch of it. You can leave it the color as is, as it comes, or like me, you can go ahead and put some instant coffee in a spray bottle and give it a little bit of age. Now, when I get my drop cloth fabric, I always pre-wash it, no softener, just detergent, and then dry it. I ended up having to do 4 coats to get this to completely cover where the raw wood was, and then where the white paint was, it just could be the raw wood and the bright white of the paint. I actually weighed down the 4 corners of this drop cloth fabric, put a fan on it to help it dry. Now I need to get the wrinkles out because I don't even know, the largest piece of drop cloth that I could get from. And a lot of times I just buy it at Harbor Freight because it seems to always be on sale. It seems to be good quality to be able to craft with. But the way that I folded it, it just has a lot of wrinkles. So I'm just taking my mini press, my Cricut mini press, some parchment paper, and working out those wrinkles. Did not want to do this before because I think the wrinkles add character in the way that the coffee stain dyed it. So now I'm going back to my Cricut. I'm going to do some vinyl lettering on this window. So the drop cloth's going on the back, the vinyl lettering is going on the front, and my idea is a bed and breakfast. We here where I am in Michigan, in the little area that we are surrounded by a lot of cottages. We have a lot of lakes going on. We have a lot of people visiting. The Airbnbs are, just a huge thing. And lake house rentals are a thing around here. So it's nice to come up with the idea for somebody to stage and decorate their house with. Love the bed and breakfast idea. So I'm going for the cottagey, what do I name the bed and breakfast? So I picked out a image off of the images. I'm not sure if I am in love with the font, but I think I'm liking this font a little bit better. So I just did Cottage by the Lake. And the thing about the bed and breakfast image is it won't let me separate the You Make Both, which is just always funny to add in. I don't want it to be that large, so it would not let me separate. I could not figure out how to separate to get that to, other than hiding it, I could hide my swirls and all that, but I couldn't get it to separate, so I ended up just creating the bed and breakfast using the font that I used by the Cottage by the Lake. And because this was so large to fit, because I think the window was the glass was 25 by 24 inches. So I had to cut out my wording separately. Oh yeah, it would have been much easier to put it on the window if it was all together, but that's just not how it was going to cut out. And when it comes to weeding out my lettering and swirling like this, I just cut it in sections so it doesn't accidentally grab my lettering, because the vinyl does stretch. So just going in there very gingerly to remove and weed this out. So what do y'all think of the color of the window? That's definitely out of the box for me. But I think with the coffee stain drop cloth behind it'll all tie in together. So I'm just taking some 200 grit sandpaper on my orbital sander and distressing. And yeah, oh my goodness, I do love this color of the window. Looks too freshly painted to me, so I'm going to go in with some JOLIE's black wax, which is always scary, and I didn't know, because this has a top coat in it, how would this take? So you can see some of the white paint was showing through, some of the wood. Now that area, I'm hoping that the black wax is going to grab onto and really give it some character. This is the old window, this is the color the old window has been painted for years. Now, the nice thing about the JOLIE's black wax is that I can use the Homestead clear wax to rub it in and make it all, not be so dark black. Do one more cleaning on my glass, make sure that there's no dust or debris or anything like that that'll be moving around once I close this in. And then to put the drop cloth on, I'm just going to staple it in place. I cut my piece of drop cloth fabric. I just got the general size. And then when it was wet, of course, it stretched a little bit when I was ironing it. So now I just need to go in and trim some of that excess fabric off. I like to make my backs look pretty, so I'm just using a piece of contractor's paper, which is like a heavy brown paper. I just hot glue it back on place. This just gives that back that finished look. And then after I get it hot glued in place, I'll cut off the excess of the paper, and then I'll take a piece of sandpaper and then just make sure that all the edges are nice and cleaned up and it's flush. I don't know how many times I can clean the glass of this window, but one more time before placing my lettering on. So now I have my lettering on my transfer tape. I love the grid pen transfer tape. Now I did, when I was had the idea of what my sizing and this whole grouping of words were going to be, I kind of knew how much extra was going to be 3 inches and what I had cut. So just for placement and my sanity, because once I start sticking this lettering on, it is not very forgiving. It's not going to just come up because, as I said, vinyl is very stretchy. So I'm just going to place masking tape as my guide when I go to start attaching my lettering. So here's the time where I forget to breathe, even though I'm using the backing to make sure that I don't actually stick my vinyl where I don't want it. See, that masking tape just saves your sanity. It's squared. I cut my vinyl transfer tape or my transfer tape to the square so that it all kind of fits in there. It just helps when it comes to placement. All those little details helps when it comes to the placement. One last step is to add a hanging system. I just get these eyelets off of Amazon, buy them in the bulk. I don't put it on when I was doing the front area because I wanted it to lay nice and flat. And then I get this 17 gauge wire because windows are heavy. I want to make sure that it is good and attached and that it has a secure hanging system. So thank you so much for watching today's video. And did I kind of shock you when I painted a window yellow? Yes. Vonda sent me some of her new paint lines that she has for sale. I'm testing them out. I'm trying to see if I like them or not. You just never know. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I did like the yellow color of it all. I wasn't sure, 4 coats, was it because of the white? Or with the blue, the Duckie color on the bench. Oh my gosh, the distressing was amazing on there. If you want to show the texture of the item underneath, that just distressed wonderful. And it has a built-in top coat, so I didn't have to seal it in by any means, but just a creature of habit, and I just love to give it one more level of extra protection just in case somebody decides to put it on their front porch. It's plant season here in Michigan, and you just never know what somebody's going to use an item for. So let me know down in the comments which of the items I made over today were your favorites, and also have I inspired you to look at your pile and gave you some ideas of what you might do with a few of those items. So thanks again for watching. As always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, Please smash that subscription button. Help me get to that 100,000. I am not one to really promote the subscription thing, but man, I'm only 4,000 away. So if you are new and you are not subscribed to this channel, please take the time to do so. I would love to by the end of the summer, 100,000. Oh, I've never been one of those to promote it, but heck, I'm so stinking close. So thanks again for watching today's video, and we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.